Several thousand Nebraskans are homeless each year. We'll talk about what homelessness looks like across the state, why it happens, and what's being done to help today on Speaking of Nebraska. Welcome to Speaking of Nebraska. I'm Mike Tobias. We're here weekly through mid-April to talk about issues facing our state, plus an update on the Nebraska legislature and a bit of Nebraska history. All the people you see here have different stories, but two things in common. They're in Nebraska and they've been homeless, sleeping in shelters, in cars, in tents by the Missouri River. Every year, workers and agencies trying to house the homeless take part in what's called a point-in-time count. Last year, they found about 2,500 homeless people in Nebraska. We followed the count this year on a cold January morning in Lincoln.
This morning is the annual point-in-time count. It's a national movement that from dusk to dawn in a 12 to 14-hour period, people who provide homeless services go out and try and do an unduplicated count of how many homeless there are in Lincoln, Nebraska. Okay, so there's so many of us that have graciously volunteered to come out this early this morning to do this. We're gonna go straight down here to 13th and then basically jog back and forth until we get back here. All right, we're ready?
So when you start this early, what's the goal?
Well, the goal is to try and find folks that might be sleeping in some of these public areas in the sidewalks or alleyways before businesses open, because there are people who will kind of hunker down real late at night between like midnight and 1, but then they know that they need to get up and on their way before the sun comes up or before businesses start opening, things like that.
So where do you usually see people? What are kind of common places?
For example, like there's a dumpster over here to my right, and it's a pretty well lit parking garage, but behind that dumpster, if you kind of curl up, there's only certain angles that you can be seen, and it's a shadow. So the light that's directly over you is being kind of dimmed a little bit to where you could sleep without a spotlight on you.
What did that show you?
Well, that shows us that someone was able to find a spot out of the way. It's behind a brick wall. There is some air ventilating from somewhere, and it's not necessarily warm air, but it's warmer than it is outside. But yeah, so I think we're pretty well ready to wrap it up.
What does it tell you that we didn't find anybody?
It tells me that people are finding a warm place to sleep at night, whether it be the shelter, someone, friend, family, that would let them just sleep on the couch to stay in from the elements. And I think a lot of places when it's really this cold, people will go to the shelter.
What does homelessness look like in Lincoln?
Well, the stereotypical version of somebody who's experiencing homelessness is the single guy on the street, maybe with some behavioral health issues. But the reality is across Lincoln, very often they're families, and they're people who have jobs, who just cannot make enough money to stay stabilized in housing, or they have some other issues that are going on.
We see people who really do maybe go south in the winter and then come back in the summer. We see people who really come to Lincoln from different parts of the country because They see our unemployment rate so low, and they see that the services that we can provide to the near homeless and homeless in Lincoln is different than other cities.
Now, this is just a snapshot. This is one single night. So often there are people who might not get counted, depending on when they're in Lincoln or when they're not in Lincoln. It also does not capture the thousands of people who are doubled up. We know we've got people who are couch surfing. You've got mom on the couch, kids on the floor. Or it's not perfect, but it's the best that we have for right now.
Well, joining us now are two others who work with homelessness in different parts of the state. Jody Jackson is rehousing director at Heartland Family Service in Omaha, and Christina Lloyd is street outreach program manager for Cedars Youth Services here in Lincoln. I'd like to thank you both for joining us. We just saw part of what the point in time count, the annual thing that happens every year, looked like in Lincoln. You've both helped with that same process in the past and to some degree this year. Any observations about that?
From my observation, it seemed like there was less people that we located this year. Despite weather conditions, there still was a lot less people that we found on the streets this year.
And you said you've worked on this in the past, and it's probably important to emphasize that this is not a hard and fast count of everyone who is homeless at any given time.
Right, it's just a snapshot. It's one night out of the year that everybody is counted across all the shelters and through our street outreach efforts. So this year we don't have the data quite back yet to show what the outcomes are. In previous years, last year, it did decline a little bit, so we're hopeful that we can continue to see homelessness declining in Omaha this year as well.
So let's talk about in general what homelessness looks like in Nebraska. You're involved in not only just the Omaha area, but some areas outside of Omaha. What does it look like?
Yeah, so we cover Douglas and Sarpy counties in Nebraska and Potawatomi County, Iowa as well. So that's primarily going to be a metro area. In Omaha, we have, like I said, about 1,400 homeless on a given day. Most of those are going to be sheltered people. We are pretty lucky in our state to have a pretty good capacity with shelter, so we have a fairly low unsheltered rate. I think only about 5% of our population is unsheltered. And the majority of the rest are going to be in emergency shelters, some in transitional housing.
And Christina, I should also point out that you're chair of the Lincoln Homeless Coalition, which is a broad group of agencies that work on the homelessness issue in this area. So what does homelessness look like amongst the people that you are involved with?
I would kind of echo Jody that Lincoln is fortunate enough to have shelters and transitional housing that can house people as well. I think the literally homeless street population has definitely declined over the past couple years within Lincoln. But we do work with, of course, transition age youth. And typically those young people are going to be doubling up, so couch surfing, staying with others day to day, just kind of depends on where they're going to go and who's going to let them stay with them.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about the youth homeless population that you work with quite a bit through Cedars. How do young people, and when you look at the number of 18-year-old or under 18-year-olds, I think in the last point in time count, there was maybe as many as 500 that were in that group. How do people that age end up being homeless?
Unfortunately, sometimes it's just the family situation. So things may not be going well at home, and so they're staying with other relatives or friends, so kind of unaccompanied youth. They don't have that guardian staying with them. I think other times is maybe something has occurred in their life that has created their homelessness. So significant life events or even times like aging out of foster care system can occasionally result in becoming homeless or couch surfing.
What are some examples of some of those other events that lead to homelessness?
Unfortunately, sometimes we do have youth that maybe have identified as LGBTQ, so then their families are no longer allowing them to stay there with them, so then they're kind of couch surfing. They don't have the income to afford their own place, very limited resources, so they don't know how to be a good tenant, they don't know how to rent, they don't have that income, lots of times they don't have that education yet, so they're just finding themselves bouncing from place to place.
We're talking a lot about Omaha and Lincoln so far, but We know that there is homelessness in some of the more rural areas, and in stories that I've done in the past, that is even, towns as small as 1,000 people or under in rural Nebraska. Talk a little bit more about, how that happens in more rural areas.
I don't know that I have as much experience with the rural area.
Good, Christina.
I'm not 100% sure I have the most answers either. I think sometimes it is youth that are just looking for other options. So they're moving somewhere because they've been told, hey, come to Kearney, it's a better option for you. There's more jobs or something. So then they end up there. And unfortunately, within a couple of weeks, they've ran out of money and they have no other options. So they're just kind of stuck where they're at. And so I think sometimes it's just a matter of circumstance. They've gone somewhere and then can't figure out how to get back home.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the other factors that lead to people being in homeless situations?
I think for a lot of people, it's just not really having that support system. So a lot of people who are low income might fall onto hard times, but some of them might have family or friends or different people that are there that they can rely on, they could stay with for a little bit or borrow some money from. And what we see with a lot with the homeless population is they don't have that. They don't have that safety net or support system, or maybe they burn some bridges over time. So sometimes it does just take a car breaking down or their kids getting sick and them losing days at work to be that crisis that kind of broke the camel's back and they end up falling into the homeless system.
And for some it's temporary, for some they fall into that category of what's considered chronically homeless. Mm-hmm. What's the difference?
So chronically homeless is going to be somebody that is reoccurring. They've had several bouts of homelessness over the past couple months, couple years. Sometimes just that, like Jody said, a car breaks down and it leads them not to be able to pay their rent or something. So the chronic is ongoing. At least one night a month is always being homeless.
Okay. You've each worked for your agencies for at least a decade, worked on this issue for a good amount of time. What are some of the changes and trends that you've seen over the years as you've been working with the homeless population?
Definitely in our community, a lot more collaboration, a lot more focus on systems change and agencies coming together to work to solve the problem of homelessness instead of kind of working in our own little silos. So that's been a huge change. There's also been a lot of focus federally and then locally as well on working on ending homelessness on a time frame and working kind of very diligently on veteran homelessness, chronic homelessness, families with kids. So there's been a lot of focus on data, using best practices and making sure that the things that we're doing is helping to move the needle on ending homelessness.
This might be a good point to jump in and talk a little bit about coordinated entry, which is a different system for helping people get out of homelessness, and all of the different 3 areas of Nebraska that deal with this. Omaha, Lincoln, what's called balance of state, are now using coordinated entry. Talk about what this is and why it matters.
So coordinated entry is so important because it helps identify the most vulnerable or the chronic homeless. And those people will be housed first. So if there's a housing provider that has an opening and that person meets their qualifications, they will be housed first using a housing first model. So essentially you house them and then you address the issues that they might have. So that could be substance abuse, mental health, and then you put those wraparound services in place. Lincoln currently has been doing coordinated entry since October 1st, sorry. And as of last week, we were down to 1 veteran on the coordinated entry list for Lincoln.
Yeah. And Omaha has also, again, been involved in coordinated entry.
Yep, Omaha started with our housing programs as well, so we've had a coordinated entry system going that coordinates housing resources for individuals that are homeless. And in a few more months, we're launching the rest of the coordinated entry system so that as individuals enter the shelter system, there's a system there and a process to help divert them from becoming homeless, if at all possible, to help get them the resources to keep them out of the system. And make sure that as people are accessing it, everybody has equal, fair access to resources. And I think very similarly that our housing resources are prioritized. Unfortunately, we don't have enough housing for everybody that experiences homelessness. So we have to make some hard decisions about which people are going to benefit from and need it the most, and which individuals might be able to kind of move out on their own with some smaller, limited resources.
You know, whenever I tell somebody that I'm working on a story or a project related to homelessness, inevitably there's a question about panhandlers and whether these are people who are truly homeless. In Omaha, you can't drive down a major road without seeing someone at a corner. You know, Jody Jackson of Heartland Family Service, you see this, as I said, a lot in Omaha. What are your thoughts? What should people know?
I mean, I know it's gotten definitely a lot more media attention from the law changes over the last couple years. Most of those people are homeless. Most of those people have no income or very small income and are using panhandling as a way to survive day to day. It's certainly never 100% of everybody that you see on the streets, but that is a large majority. I know that sometimes the question is, you know, are people scamming me? Is, you know, what's going on there? And a lot of them really are the homeless and street homeless population and are using that money to live on.
Yeah. And we touched on youth earlier. Christina Lloyd with Cedars Youth Services. You obviously work a lot with the youth population, but you know, what are some of the challenges and what makes this a more difficult population to try to help?
They're really resourceful. So sometimes they will come to us for services and then they're difficult to locate again. They tend to kind of have more friends that they can go from place to place. Sometimes they're in school, so they have that place during the day that they're safe, and then at night they're kind of bouncing around. But I think our biggest challenge is sometimes just relocating them. They'll come in and get the services that they need at that moment in time. They're very in the moment, get their needs met at that point in time, and they're not thinking about 2 or 3 weeks down the road, like what am I going to do then? So the challenge is just keeping up with them, I think, sometimes.
When you look at federal and state budgets, what are some concerns that you have about funding and about programs that help with homelessness?
I think it's always making sure that that continued funding stream is there. Like I mentioned, we've really made a lot of progress in the last several years towards ending homelessness, and a lot of that has been investments from HUD and Veterans Affairs that have helped push that progress. So making sure that that funding remains and increases to fully meet the need so that we're able to accomplish those goals. That's always a worry every year with the budget getting passed.
Are there any specific programs this year that you're concerned about that might not be around?
I don't think I'm currently concerned about any of the federal dollars that we're receiving, but I would say it's always a concern that there's that chance that funding could get cut for different programs. So it's really a guessing game sometimes on how much money you're going to be awarded the following year, and grants are always very competitive, and there's never seems to be quite enough money to go around for everyone and to provide the services that are needed.
Does the issue get enough attention and resources?
I think it could get more attention and resources.
I wouldn't expect you to say anything otherwise, either of you. But
you know, particularly with the youth population, I feel like there could definitely be more resources available to them in terms of housing. There is limited options sometimes for that transition age youth. So I do feel like when it comes to federal dollars, that more money could be invested in the youth population.
yeah. Is that lack of housing the biggest barrier?
Definitely lack of housing, but also just affordable housing in general. For a lot of people, especially on fixed incomes, they fall into homelessness because there is no housing that is affordable in the community. They can't find anything that they can live off of a Social Security income and be able to afford. So definitely funding for homeless programs, but on a broad scale, if we don't start investing in our affordable housing in our communities, the problem isn't going to be able to sustain.
Yeah. Christina, you touched earlier on the success the Lincoln area has had in terms of veterans homelessness. The balance of the state, which in the homeless sort of service world is everything outside of Lincoln and Omaha, has actually earned a federal designation for ending veterans homelessness, which doesn't mean it doesn't exist. It just means that there is housing available for any veteran that wants it. How realistic is this that both Omaha and Lincoln could get to that same point?
I think Lincoln is getting close to that point of being able to say that we have been able to end veteran homelessness. I guess only, in a couple months we'll find out if we're able to actually declare that.
Yeah. Omaha, obviously, you deal with a much bigger population and a lot of veterans.
A lot of veterans, but our veteran homelessness population has been going down. And I think we're also pretty close to being able to declare an end or functional zero in Omaha. So I think we're kind of getting to the stage where we can start pulling some of those benchmarks and data together to see how close we really are.
In our final few seconds, I want to ask each of you, what do you want people to know about homelessness?
I guess a takeaway for me is that this is a solvable problem. I think it's something that we've lived with for a long time, so we assume it will always be there to some extent, but this is a problem that can be ended on a level where, like you mentioned, functionally there is enough housing for people and people don't experience long bouts of homelessness.
Yeah. Christina?
So I'm going to kind of quote a line from the Homestretch documentary. I really like the line that this is just a circumstance. It doesn't make the person who they are. So I think for the people that we are serving, a lot of times this is just a circumstance. It's unfortunate and this is their situation right now, but it doesn't define them, and there's plenty of resources available that can help assist them.
Okay. Jody Jackson from Heartland Family Services, Christina Lloyd from Cedars Youth Services. Thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, here are a couple other stories NET News will have next week. Farmers sometimes try to grow foods with an eye to boosting the health factor, like raising fish, organic vegetables, or grass-fed beef. But researchers say it's hard to measure the precise impact of one approach over another. Listen for that story Monday. It's part of our regional Harvest Public Media Food, Fuel, and Field reporting collaboration. And climate change is the topic of Bill Kelly's story next Tuesday. Bill spoke one-on-one with V. Ramanathan, Pope Francis's consultant on climate change, who was visiting Creighton University. They talk about things like the connection between science and religion and what agriculture's social responsibility should be. You can listen to or read all of our signature stories on NET Radio or at netnebraska.org/news and connect with NET News and our journalists on Facebook and Twitter. Last week's deadly shooting at a high school in Parkland, Florida, sparked controversy on the floor of the Nebraska legislature.
I hardly slept last night. I was up about 3:30 thinking about this horrific event and what can be done. And legislators on the floor, I don't think that any of us should have slept last night, because we have the ability to change what is happening in our state and in our country. We have the ability to save lives.
Well, state government reporter Fred Knapp joins us now to talk about a couple of bills stemming from that Florida school shooting.
Senator Walz, after she made her speech, I asked her what she's referring to as a solution, and she talked about a bill she has that would put social workers in each of the state's educational service units, or ESUs. These are sort of regional service organizations for school districts. There's no money for that. This is a tight budget year. But the way her proposal would work, once they accumulated $3.5 million of private contributions, then the program would be implemented. And after that, the ESUs and the schools and the state and private philanthropy could contribute to keep it going. And the idea is to reach troubled kids, families, and train school personnel and administrators. The other one is Senator Justin Wayne has a proposal that would say, if you were convicted of something that would be a felony if you were an adult when you were a juvenile, or if you were convicted of domestic violence, you could not get a firearm until you were 25. Right now, once you turn 19, no matter what you've done as a juvenile, if you were tried as a juvenile, you're eligible to buy a gun.
Yeah. So with either of these proposals, the likelihood that they'll even get to the floor for debate?
Well, it's Senator Walz's proposal is out of committee, so and it's been given a priority, so that makes it very likely that it will be debated.
And the likelihood that it may be funded outside of the state.
She says that she's in discussion with some private funding sources that sound promising, so we'll see if that happens. Senator Wayne's bill, he gave it his priority. It's not out of committee yet, but He thinks it will be, and so there could actually be a debate on guns in the legislature in the weeks coming ahead.
And this was the week that senators declared and designated their priority bills. One was the governor's tax cut package that was carried by Senator Jim Smith.
That's right, but it is not out of committee. Smith, you'll recall, this bill tries to cut both income taxes and property taxes. Last year, the objection was there's too much stress on income tax cuts, so it's been reworked. Now, the chambers of commerce are complaining that there's too much stress on property tax cuts. They want something more in terms of income tax cuts, both on the corporate side and the personal side. So we'll see if that circle can be squared and get enough votes to get out of committee.
And other talk about tax cuts?
Yeah, Senator Erdman has his proposal that would refund half of what you pay in property taxes for schools. There's very little support for that in the committee, but he's got a petition drive going now to go around the legislature and put it to voters in the fall. The other one is a proposal by Senator Breezy that would increase sales taxes, cigarette taxes, income taxes, funnel more money into school aid, and try to reduce property taxes that way. But it's a work in progress, and he's still fine-tuning it. It, too, is stuck in committee at this point.
Which we're halfway through the session, actually a little beyond halfway through the session. There's not much time for these things to get out.
Right. And once they get out, they have to run the filibuster gauntlet that Senator Chambers throws down while he pursues his priority bill, which is repeal of the Black-tailed Prairie Dog Management Act. And there are a ton of other priority bills. Every senator gets one. Senator Howard has one on opiates that would try to limit prescriptions, especially for young people, to no more than 7 days. A doctor could overrule that, but they'd have to document why they're doing that.
Okay. Real briefly, there's a bit of lively debate this week on something on the surface wouldn't seem like a big deal, and that's the cost of phone calls for jail inmates.
Right. The ACLU did a study. It showed that in Saline County, you could pay up to $320 for an hour's worth of calls, so they're trying to make that more reasonable.
Okay. Fred Knapp, thank you. During the session, listen to Fred's daily legislative updates on NET Radio at 5:45 and 7:45 a.m. and 5:45 p.m. and on our website at netnebraska.org/news. A Beatrice woman was a leader in the women's suffrage movement. The story of Clara Colby in this week's Nebraska History Moment.
Clara Buick Colby arrived in Beatrice with her husband in 1872. She wasted no time in making her mark on the community. She started the first public library and community theater. Colby established herself as a significant force in Nebraska and the national women's suffrage movement. She launched the Women's Tribune newspaper in 1883, circulating news of the suffrage movement throughout the Midwest and West for 26 years. Clara Colby made an impact. Nebraskans supported referendums granting women the vote in 1882 and 1914, but both attempts were defeated. Colby died in 1916, 4 years before women won the right to vote in 1920, and nearly 70 years after the suffrage movement began.
That's all for this edition of Speaking of Nebraska. Next week, we'll talk about jobs in Nebraska. Thanks for joining us. Good night.